So the weather's changing and we want to get outdoors and garden, but you know, it's still a little bit cold to plant directly into your veg garden. So why don't you start your seeds indoors? And it's really easy to do, and we have lots of tips for you today. So the first thing is you're going to need some containers. So you can use like these cell trays, or you can use clam shells. You can get the big trays. Just make sure you're using clean equipment. Make sure there's nothing left from last year, no slugs, no dirt, because you want a clean slate. You don't want to have any diseases attacking those new seeds.
And, you know, once you have your containers, you want to start with a good high quality, seed starting mix. This one from Espoma is nice because it has a blend of some mycorrhizae in there, some endo and ecto mycorrhizae, and that will help with the root germination and growth. So once you have your container filled out, you'll want to fill it with your soil, your good planting mix. This is nice because, a bag like this, there's no bugs, there's no diseases. You don't want to pull anything out of your garden for doing this. So after you have your container filled, you'll want to wet it down a little bit, make sure that the soil is moist all the way through. So we use just a little spray water bottle like this, which works pretty well. And then we can just kind of mist the soil like this, make sure the water gets all the way down, and then it's not spilling all over the place.
So the next tip is to use good quality seed. You want seeds that are packaged to use this year. If you are using older seed, you might have to plant them again and again, so it's really great to get this year's seeds. And all the information that you're going to need is on the back of the packet. It tells you exactly how to plant them, it tells you planting dates, it tells you when to harvest. It has so much good information here, so make sure that you read it because a lot of research goes into these packets. And now the fun begins because now we're going to plant. I'm going to show you with pea seeds because they're nice and big, and so I can show you exactly what to do. So we're going to use these cells that Ryan all filled up and all the soil's moist. Take a stick or even a pencil and you make like a little hole, and then you take one seed, you drop it in, and then you cover it. So we're going to do that. We're going to put one in each cell. And then when I'm finished with all that, Ryan, can you moisten that first?
Yes, and then once they're all in there, we want to go through and we'll moisten it one final time. So we'll give it a little fresh there, because once the seeds start germinating, we always want to keep this soil moist. Because once those start to sprout, if they dry out, they're done and you're going to have to start over. So it's very important to keep sure your soil is moist the whole time. After we have it planted, we also want to remember what we planted in there. So it's great, we need to label our cells. So this is just a little popsicle stick you can pick up at any of the garden centers or home stores. And then just write down what it is you planted. And we like to put the date on there so you know what day it planted. So you kind of have an idea of how long it's taken to germinate. If you've gone a long period of time and it hasn't germinated, you might want to think about replanting.
Now the time is to think about heat and light. If you have a heat mat, that really helps the plants germinate fast. And remember that the soil will dry out a little faster. And then it's good to use some kind of a light source. It's great if you have a grow light, but if you don't, put the plants in a south-facing window.
And once, after our seedlings have come up, it gets to be time where we need to transplant them. So what we want to look for is roots coming out the bottom to make sure that they're fully rooted. And then we also want to go through and we'll need to thin them out a little bit. A lot of times we'll have multiple seeds germinated in a pot. So like on these tomatoes, we have 3 different tomatoes coming up in there. We want to thin those down to just one singular tomato. So what we'll do is we'll go through with a pair of clippers and we will trim out those 2 and leave the 1. We don't want to pull them apart or tease them because we don't want to damage the roots on the others. So we'll thin them out, come down to 1 start, and we also want to look at the leaves that are starting to come out. So the primary leaves are the first ones that come out. We want to wait until that plant has a secondary or more true leaf. And a lot of times that leaf will look different and more like what the plant is actually supposed to be. Then we know it's time to transplant.
Once the plants are ready to transplant outside, make sure that the soil temperature is about 50 degrees, not the air temperature. You can use a soil thermometer or even a meat thermometer to check that soil temperature. If it's still too cold, you can always take your transplants and put them into a larger container.
For more information on seed starting and when to plant inside or out, make sure you go to the Garden Time website.